Welcome back to another New York Giants video, and today I'm making a video which I thought I would never have to make as a Giants fan, but here I am. Brian Flores, formerly the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, who interviewed for the New York Giants head coaching job a day before before we hired Brian Daboll, is suing the Giants and the NFL along with the Miami Dolphins and Denver Broncos for alleged racism during their hiring process, and also had other things against the Dolphins and the Broncos as well. But mainly about the New York Giants, I never thought this would happen. John Mara, it doesn't come off as a guy who's racist, and honestly, with the facts and everything coming out, I still don't believe this was completely a racial discrimination against Brian Flores. But again, this is a controversial topic, so you guys are free to feel however you want. This video is not about to change your opinion either way. It's more about just giving you guys the facts, and I'll give you guys my opinion as well. I'm kind of in the middle of everything. Obviously, you don't want to see a thing like this happen. But just the way things played out and the timing of everything, I'm still kind of torn. But I'm not in support of racial discrimination or anything like that. It's just that the timing and John Mara actually having interest and everything like that in Brian Flores before the hiring process. I'll get into it a little bit later, but it just doesn't seem like it's something that it's like that. But with other teams, I think with the Dolphins, I think it's more serious. It's not with the Dolphins. It wasn't really racially profiled. He wasn't really racially profiled. It was more of they wanted him to lose on purpose, and they were going to give him money for that. With the Broncos, it's kind of more of a bizarre situation where the owner and the GM at time, John Elway, just came into the meeting an hour late and they were drunk. And then obviously he's suing the NFL because they're in charge of these NFL teams, and they're supposed to be monitoring these the hiring process and everything that goes on in the league. But without further ado, let's get into it. First thing I want to bring up is actually the lawsuit that he filed. And here it is. I'm going to read the entire thing, and then so it kind of gives you a brief overview of what the entire situation is and why he's suing the New York Giants. Instead, the New York Giants made the decision to hire Brian Daboll and disclosed the decision to third parties during a time when the Giants were scheduled to still interview Mr. Flores. And when Mr. Flores was decisively led to believe he actually had a chance at this job. Thus, on Wednesday, January 26, 2022, which was a day before he was interviewed, Mr. Flores was forced to sit through it was actually the day he was interviewed, my bad. Sit through a dinner with Joe Shane, the Giants' new general manager, knowing that the Giants had already selected Mr. Daboll. Much worse, on Thursday, January 27, 2022, Mr. Flores had to give an extensive interview for a job that he had already knew he would not get. So actually, I was right. An interview that was held for no reason other than for the Giants to demonstrate falsely to the league commissioner, Roger Goodell, and the public at large that it was in compliance with the Ronnie Rule. The Giants would likely have gotten away with this most insidious form of discrimination if New England Patriots coach Bill Belichick had not mistakenly disclosed it to Mr. Flores in the below text messages. I'm going to show you guys the text messages in a bit, but kind of there you saw why he's suing the New York Giants. It's mostly because he felt like from the information he was given from Bill Belichick, and it was on purpose from Bill, but never know. It was on purpose. Obviously, he was texting Brian Daboll, who has the same first name as Brian Flores. So you kind of see why the mistake kind of happened there on Bill Belichick's part. But Brian Flores was led to believe that the Giants had already selected their head coach, who was Brian Daboll, before they interviewed him, and they were just interviewing him just so they can complete the Ronnie Rule. To be honest with you, I feel like if the Giants did feel like they had their guy in Brian Daboll, that's fine. To be honest, you're gonna have your guy. You're gonna know who your guy is if you're going through interviews, and if you feel really highly of a candidate, then why not? Feel like that's the guy. But the thing where they went wrong with here is that I don't get why you disclose that information to other teams, or even a guy like Bill Belichick or whatever. Like, if you have your feelings about a guy, keep it inside the building. There's no point of leaking that information, especially when you didn't complete the Ronnie Rule yet and still haven't completed all of your interviews yet. Let's say if they completed all of their interviews and still were in that decision making phase where they were torn between Dable and Flores or whatever the candidates were, then I guess it's fine to leak information. But right now, when you're still interviewing guys, I don't get why that information was let outside of the building. You know, it's fine to have that stuff going around in the building, as they should, because if there's not talk about it, then, you know, you're not really getting anywhere in the search. So in that terms, I think the Giants were right, but leaking that information getting outside of the building was not right at all. And if the Giants were 100% sure that Dable was their guy and that Flores, you know, was just there to being interviewed for the Ronnie Rule, then I feel like in that sense, the Giants were kind of in the wrong, just because you don't interview a guy just because you want to, you know, follow suit for a rule. You want to interview a guy because you feel like he's a real candidate. And I'm going to get into that, like him actually being a real candidate later with the John Mara situation. But right now I want to bring up the text messages that him and Bill Belichick shared. So Brian Flores screenshotted these text messages from Bill Belichick. So in the gray is Belichick, and then the blue is Brian Flores. So just so you guys know what's going on here, Bill Belichick is texting a Brian, which is supposed to be Brian Dable, and congratulating him on getting the Giants job. And this was before Flores was interviewed. And Flores wasn't sure what Belichick was talking about. He thought he was getting the job because, you know, they really liked him and everything before they even interviewed him. And then he realizes that, oh, they already have their guy and I still haven't interviewed yet. And to be honest with you, that's kind of not fair on Flores' side. But with John Mara and hiring Joe Shane, you kind of feel like he has to have his guy, and him coming from Buffalo kind of plays into it, because you know that he's probably going to bring Dable along with him. All right, so the text messages go like this. Sounds like you have landed. Congrats. So he's talking to Brian Dable, but mistakenly he's texting Brian Flores. And Flores goes, "Did you hear something I didn't hear?" Bill Belichick, Giants. And then Brian Flores kind of goes along and says, "I interview on Thursday. I think I have a shot at it." And then Belichick goes, "Got it. I hear from Buffalo and the Giants that you're their guy. I hope it works out if you want it too." And then Flores goes, "That's definitely what I want. Hope you're right, coach. Thank you." And then Flores kind of realizes that when he brings up Buffalo, that maybe he's talking about Brian Dable. So here he goes, "Coach, are you talking to Brian Flores or Brian Dable? Just making sure." And then that's where Bill Belichick realizes that he's texting the wrong guy. So he says, "Sorry, I fucked this up. I double checked and I misread the text. I think they're naming Dable. I'm sorry about that, Bill Belichick." And then Flores goes, "Thanks, Bill." So we kind of see where the misunderstanding and where the things kind of got leaked, and Brian Flores was led to believe that he wasn't the guy and he was just there to fulfill that Ronnie Rule. And I don't know how Bill Belichick got this information. Obviously, he's well known and respected throughout the league and has history with the New York Giants. So I guess the Giants were kind of whatever they were, if they're double checking information about Dable or whatever it is. I feel like this information shouldn't have been leaked this early, but in a way, good thing it was, because then I guess Flores, to justify what he's doing, that he is in the right. But I don't think so. It was really because the Giants don't want to hire a black coach. It was more because the Giants had their guy in Brian Dable, and they hired Joe Shane to hire the next head coach. And as fans, that's what we wanted. We didn't want Mara to have influence or impact who we hire. We wanted Joe Shane to lead that search, and that's what happened. He wanted Dable. He was interviewing all these guys. Dable had a strong interview and just felt at that point felt Dable was the guy. But if they were 100% sure and these guys were just interviewing just to get interviewed, I don't know what to say. It shouldn't be like that. I think they should have really gave Flores a shot. And I think with what Mara came out and said in the statement from the New York Giants, it seems like he was in consideration until the very end. And if that's true, then I can't really say anything, because then at that point it just proves that the Giants weren't really being racist. But I want to bring up the statement from the Giants that came out. It goes, "We are pleased and confident with the process that resulted in the hiring of Brian Daboll. We interviewed an impressive and diverse group of candidates. The fact of the matter is, Brian Flores was in the conversation to be our head coach until the 11th hour." So, like, there you see that he was a guy that they were considering until the very end. And then they said, "Ultimately, we hired the individual we felt was most qualified to be our next head coach." And if you guys remember, the Giants were doing their due diligence on Brian Flores. They were reaching out to Miami and co-workers of Flores and guys that worked with him, under him, and everything like that. I'm pretty sure they probably reached out to players, but can't make that assumption. But through the process, it felt like Flores was really close with Daboll, and it felt like it was really between one of those. And if Daboll went to Miami, Flores was our guy. And before the search even started, and before we even hired a GM, it felt like Brian Flores was getting a lot of attention from the New York Giants, because Mara reached out to him personally. And that's where I want to bring up this thing. This tweet is actually from January 27, 2022. So this was last month. This was before we had our GM. This was before we even started the head coaching search, because at that point we were still looking at GMs. And I'm pretty sure you guys remember that the only reason we reached out to Flores was because of these candidates having Flores on their list. And Mara personally reached out to Brian Flores. So it says John Mara reached out to Brian Flores to let him know Giants were interested before they had hired a GM. Why? All of the GM finalists, according to Mara, had Flores on their short list. And I'm pretty sure you guys remember this. And a lot of us were hyped that we could potentially get Brian Flores and maybe get Deshaun Watson with him. And then Mara came out and said, we're not going to be trading for Watson. But this was before that. I think before we even hired Joe Schoen. So at this, I mean, I don't know what to say, really. If the Giants really did only interview Flores because to comply with the Ronnie rule, then they're in the wrong. And if they really felt like Joe Schoen had their guy in Daboll, and we're also considering Flores and Leslie Frazier, because if you remember, Frazier interviewed not on Thursday but on Friday, and Flores interviewed on Friday, and then I think Graham interviewed on Wednesday. So I think if they were just interviewing these guys just to interview them and for the rule, then they're in the wrong. But if they really were considering Flores and Frazier and Graham up to the end, or they were really close with Daboll, and they felt like Daboll was the right fit at the end, then I guess you can't really say anything, because they really did consider him. But I think the part where he's going at is that the Giants didn't consider him a finalist just because he was black, and felt like that they were only interviewing him for the rule. Honestly, my opinion is that I don't think so. That's the case. I think that John Mara, because John Mara, we kind of know the type of person he is. He's not going to reach out to someone if he doesn't feel like he's a guy that the Giants could have interest in or potentially hire. He reached out to them because he felt like he was. And up to a point, he really was a strong candidate for the Giants. And then we hired Joe Schoen, and then we're like, okay, he's gonna bring along Brian Daboll, the offensive-minded head coach that the Giants really needed. Still pretty young, development of Josh Allen. He could develop Daniel Jones and all this kind of stuff. So I think till the end, it was really a close race. But who are we to say, because we don't really know what was going on in that building. This is going to go to court. They're going to look at the timetable. They're going to look at everything. When the text messages came out, if John Mara really did reach out to Flores, and John Mara did, he came out and said that he confirmed that was true. He did reach out to Flores. So there's a lot of things that go into this. I think it's going to be a while until this is completely sorted out. If you guys didn't know, Flores did go on CBS and ESPN today, and giving his claim and putting forward his allegations and why he's right and why these teams should be sued. I didn't get to watch the ESPN one, did get to watch the CBS one, where it was more of the same stuff that he felt like he was, only being interviewed for the rule. I think that's the only thing that really applies to the Giants, because it's not like we where it came out, where there were emails and stuff that came out with Washington and the Raiders and all that kind of stuff. It's not that serious. I think it's more of, did they consider him a real candidate until on Friday, where they hired Dable, or even Thursday after the interview. So I think that's where I stand right now. I'm really torn between both sides. Don't support, obviously, being racist or anything like that, but there's a lot of informations on both sides, and based on the informations, let me know what side or what you guys feel like is who's right or who's wrong. I don't want to say what side you're on, because that kind of makes you a racist or not. It's not really like that. It's more of what information is making you buy into their side, I guess. But yeah, so let me know. And that's going to do it for this video. So subscribe, hit the bell notification, and leave me a like if you like the video. And see you until next time.